back, everyone, to the Rampage Mix channel. Hope everyone's having an awesome day, whatever day you are watching this. And welcome back to the Rampage Mix channel. Today, I found myself just like scrolling through, well, not scrolling, not doom scrolling, but scrolling through, chess events. We know Norway chess is happening now, so if you guys want me to cover that, let me know. But I was scrolling through it, and I found something that is quite remarkable, honestly, and regards one player and their performance in a certain tournament that concluded 2 days ago in the US. And I want to share some games that are really going to take you aback because it shows different dynamics of this player and what they're really capable of, maybe a next talent in the future. And yeah, something different for this video. I want to kind of show you guys who this player really is. So in the first round, this player goes by the name Sam. He plays Nico Chasen. US is one of the younger stars. Is around 2,500. He's 2,485, and he's a grandmaster. So what happens in the open tournaments is that generally people that are like 2,100 plus, they play upper, and then people that are right in the cusp of that middle play a little bit down. But it always depends on the number of people that register for the tournament, right? It is an open tournament after all. So Nico begins with e4. We get e5, and by the way, the time control is 1 hour 20 for both sides, right? So you're gonna see how the time kind of factors into Sam's play. We get knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6. So we get kind of a Ruy Lopez, right? We get the a6 variation. We have bishop a4, knight f6, castle, bishop b7. Obviously, this has all been seen before. Nothing crazy extraordinary so far. Rook e1, b5, bishop b3, and d6. We get c3. Nico tries to build up for d4. Obviously, you don't want to play d4 yet because then you'll run into a pin. So what they do normally is they play h3 to stop bishop g4, and white kind of gets the space advantage, but black sort of tries to play knight a5. They play c5, trying to get the queen side space, right? So there's a lot of different setups here. There's knight a5, and also bishop b7, but what Sam chooses is to play knight b8. Now this is known as the Breyer defense, and what they generally do here is that they try to develop the knight to d7 so that if the knight is on c6, it kind of blocks the bishop's development on b7. So Nico plays d4, we get knight d7, and we get c4. So immediately trying to attack b5, trying to attack the center, or not the center, but the queen side. We get c6, so he's just protecting his b5 pawn. Knight c3, b4, knight a4, and we get c5. So we do get this kind of triangle. Well, I guess not. It's kind of like a check mark, sort of, on the queen side, right? We get d5 by Nico, and we get rook e8, right? So Sam is kind of just finishing his development. Nothing extraordinary. The times are about even. Nico's up a little bit on time. And we get knight h2, maybe trying to go for an f4 break and trying to reroute his knight to g4. Obviously, also the plans here aren't extremely familiar. Normally, the queen side is not as locked up as this, but he can always try to make a break with a3, while black's play is actually not that obvious, right? So Sam goes knight f8, we get g3, and we get h5. So we already get some attacking kind of prospects here. Obviously, you don't want to allow h4 because that softens your dark squares, right? Let's say Nico played king g2, we get h4, g4, and then knight g6, and already the dark squares are significantly weakened, right? So you have to be seriously careful, especially with the dark square bishops still on the board. Well, what Sam would probably play here, if this did happen, was knight h7, bishop g5, and try to exchange those dark square bishops so that the f4 square is very good for him, right? It's an outpost. We get h4 and we get knight g4. So immediately trying to punish what Nico's trying to stop, right? He wants h4. He's played h4. So now we get knight g4. We get knight f1. He doesn't want to trade because if you trade, even hg, but I would probably say bishop g4, and then you can never like predict what the next step is, right? g5 and h4 is going to be hanging. It's a lot of different stuff, a lot of different dynamics. And we get knight f1. But if you do notice, the time here, Sam is down 20 minutes, right? And generally in this tournament, he is a very, he uses his time, right? He's not a person that blitzes out his moves. He takes his time. But again, when you have that level difference between a GM and a 2200, you're going to see that time actually takes its effect, right? So we get f5. Well, that's what you think. f5, we get takes, and we get bishop c2. Again, just how I said that you want to trade the dark square bishop. If we got h4, now Nico is trying to trade the light square bishop so that he can exploit the e4, d3, e6, those kind of weaknesses, right? We get bishop h7. He said, if you want to trade, you have to trade on my terms so that I can maybe get g5 in the future. We get f3, kicking him out, knight f6, b3, and again, right, Sam has 23 minutes, so he's down roughly 30 minutes, right? And he has to find a plan. And here he plays a move that is just, it's so counterintuitive because white controls that square. And he plays a move e4. E4, because after takes, you go knight g4. You get that outpost for your knight. And now you want to go bishop f6 and try to eradicate the rook, right? The dark squares are black's possessions. So we get bishop b2 immediately, trying to trade that dark squared bishop. We get knight e3, trade, takes, queen f6. Sam is now better. e4 was the only move to keep the advantage for black. We had rook b1, knight d7, queen e2, and queen d4. And now we see all these threats on e4. We get knight f6 is going to come in the future. Rook e5, rook e8. The dark squares are starting to really hurt white, right? But it's 29 minutes to 2 minutes. So the time is not, like, it's getting extremely hard. Knight d1, that's a blunder. Because he uncorks bishop e4. Knight f2. There is a pin here, so he has to be really careful. So Sam, with 2 minutes on his clock, he doesn't go bishop g6. He doesn't panic. He doesn't play knight f6. He sacrifices his queen. Queen takes e3. Takes. Because at the end of the day, you're going to get that b1 rook. Queen c1, bishop b1, rook, queen b1, and rook e3. Attacking g3, he's going to get rook e8 in the future. Knight f6. That g4 square is perfect for that knight. Queen f5, knight f6, queen f4, check, and he goes rook e2. He pins the knight, and mind you, he has 16 seconds on his clock, right? King g1, rook a e8. Here's the problem. White has no easy moves because you're going to get rook e3 in, you're going to get rook e1, take the a2 pawn. Again, because we closed up that queen side, that now once we get to the base of this pawn chain, this b pawn is going to go. G4 takes. You cannot take on g4 because, well, there's a lot of different reasons, but probably mainly you're just going to get, you're going to lose your knight, probably much more, right? This knight, queen, and rook are all going to checkmate. So we had hg4, h5, rook e1 check, rook e2, just to get that extra time, and now he has 2 minutes on his clock. Knight g4, rook e1, king g2, rook e2, knight f2, and he pins the knight on e4 to win this game, and he has beaten his first GM of the tournament. No easy feat. So now, next round, he gets paired against someone called Sharvish. He's an FM, but his same strength around 2400, and he gets double black, right? So we'll view it in his perspective. And again, what happens in the opens is that if you win round 1, you get sent straight to the top, especially if you're not like a title player, you have insane rating. You get paired against people of that same caliber and even higher. So we get knight f3 to start the Sharvish's game. We get knight f6, c4, g6. So it seems to, from the last game, that Sam really likes these fianchetto, he likes these dark squared initiatives. g3, bishop g7, bishop g2, castle, d6. We get knight c3 and a5. By the way, Sharvish has less time because he appeared late to the game. b3, knight d7, bishop b2, and now knight e4. This is a nice kind of trick in these kind of b3, bishop b2 setups that you want to trade the knight for the dark squared bishop, because at the end of the day, the knight is not as valuable as the bishop once you fianchetto and weaken your dark squares, right? The knight is going to be easily easily kicked out from black's camp, and you're just going to keep expanding on the queen side, right? And you get the bishop pair as well. So it's kind of a nice little trick. We get queen c2, knight c3, bishop c3, and e5. So he declines the bishop trade. We get d4, rook e8, takes, rook d1. So white has a perfectly fine position, as is black. We get queen e7 and queen b2, knight c5, and we get rook d5. So we get kind of a, not really a fork, but we can imagine that it can get kind of ugly. But let's just say if he does f6, we get queen a3, and we kind of get that kind of really annoying pin, I would say, because if you do this, then a5 of course falls, right? So there's a lot of different dynamics in the position. Queen a3, bishop f8. We get knight e1, and we get c6. So Sam kicks out the rook from d5. We get rook d2, and we get queen f7. So he's shielding the queen, and he's preparing for a discovered attack. Queen b2, bishop f5, and already Sam is better. He's much, much better because of the dark square dynamic, right? We saw in his round 1 game that once he controlled those g5 and h6 squares, his play was extremely, extremely easy. So you have rook a d1, and he played on this side of the board, so what better than to play on the other side of the board? And he hits the b3 pawn. You don't want to play b4 because then after knight a6, then c4 is extremely weak, and then a3 is always a possibility to line up with the rook, right? So we get knight c2, ab, and now knight e4. So he's forking both of the pieces. He's forcing Sharvish to give up his bishop pair, but again, he's down on time, right? 8 minutes to 18 minutes. And when you get to those kind of time scrambles, anything is possible. Sam is much, much better here. We can see how he's completely outplaying his opponents as well. f3, bishop f5, king g2, and now he plays bishop h6. And what he does is extremely, extremely smart. White only has one safe square for the rook, so what he does is he gets that extra time. He repeats twice, right? And then he plays h5 because he wants that extra 30 seconds, maybe make a new plan, and he does execute a new plan. He wants h5, h4, just as we saw in the other game, right? So these kind of mixed ideas, when you're kind of a strategical player, it kind of, it overlaps into games. You get e4, bishop e6, bishop b4. He wants to trade away that bishop. Sam says no, bishop h6, rook d3, and now you played e4, you played f3, you weaken this side, but you also weaken f5. Who's going to guard that pawn? I'm telling you, that's not going to be enough, because then rook f8 comes. Oh, but the bishop guards f8. So Sharvish sees that he can get an opportunity to trade his bishop, and he plays it. And in 1 minute, Sam has to come up with an idea. But lucky for him, it's not that difficult. He takes on e4. We get takes, not bishop g4. That bishop used to guard a square. And that square was very important. Rook f8. And there's no way to stop queen f2 check, along with bishop g4, along with bishop f3. Everything is coming into the position. He plays bishop e3, trying to guard against f2, but the problem is you block one attack, but you gain another. The rook gets blocked by the bishop, queen f3 check, bishop h3, no way to guard against g2. He can try knight e1, but then the f1 square. White's pieces block the king's escape. We get queen c1 and queen g2 checkmate. Sam wins another game, so he's already up 40 rating. And in the next game, he gets paired against Brandon Jacobson, the man that played a4 and beat Hikaru in the World Rapid and Blitz in 2024. At least he gets white. He opens the game with e4. We get c5. Brandon has all the will to win. Knight c3, knight c6, knight f3. So kind of a transposition from the normal Sicilian. We get d6, d4, takes, knight f6, and we get a Richter-Rauser variation. So for those of you who don't know, this is a line in the classical Sicilian where black develops his bishops and kind of a cocoon, but always tries to trade the knight. We get castle, bishop d7, so he's kind of demonstrating what it was. And normally how it goes is you go f3, bishop e7, h4, castles. And what black does, he plays knight d4, he goes for b5. And the Sicilian is a very, very dynamic kind of game. I made a video on the Dragon Sicilian, so make sure to check that out. Part of my 10-minute breakdown series. But this is different, right? Because the bishops are developed. They're not developed on the dark square diagonal, which Sam actually really likes. But if they play a3, takes, rook c8, and you get b5, you get b4, and it's a very, very dynamic kind of situation. We get bishop d7, and he takes. He takes very early. We get takes, f3, bishop b7, king b1. Always a safe move because you never know when rook c8 and b5, b4 is going to thunder, or your king's going to be under severe pressure. h6, you never want to take. You never ever want to take. Don't trade a bishop unless you have a good reason, especially in the Sicilian, because even if you win this pawn, black can damage your structure, but you can also just play king e7, rook c8, b5, and you don't actually gain anything from this trade. In fact, you weaken your position, because once I gobble up this c3 pawn, then your c2 pawn is going to be weak. Then I can double the rooks. Your bishop on f1 is blocked by your own pawns, and you're in serious, serious trouble. So king b1, h6, bishop b3, he solidifies his position. Queen c7, and Sam plays a nice little maneuver, knight e2. So he's trying to reroute to d4, trying to get a better, because honestly, in these kind of positions, you need to know where your pieces are best placed. The knight on c3, it can't go to d5 anymore because of the e6 variation played by Brandon. And there's nothing he can really do. He can't go to a4, he can't go to b5, so he goes to knight e2 to go to knight d4, right? So it's all different plans kind of merging into one kind of setup, which you do have to know. We get castles, knight d4, rook d8, and here Sam, sensing that sensing that d5 is going to happen, he plays c4. So that way, if it does go d5, you can take, maybe play e5, bishop f4 is also an idea, and then you play e5, and then you maybe play e6, and you try to wreck-it Ralph on his whole king side, right? So instead of c4, he sees that he has another idea, knight d7. But you see, Brandon is playing extremely fast, actually, and it's 1 hour and 3 minutes versus 44 minutes. We've seen in all of these games that Sam is consistently down 10 to 20 minutes on the clock because he needs to understand the position. Obviously, stuff like this takes experience, but this tournament was something that will shock you. And seeing that the knight has departed from the king's side, Sam sees this as his initiative. g4! Never afraid to attack his grandmaster opponent. He goes g4, h4, g5, h5. They're all going to come. Rook g1. We get knight e5. Just have to be a little bit careful that you don't weaken. Because if you play like knight b3 aimlessly, then you lose f3, you lose e4, and you lose the game. So he goes queen c2. We get bishop d7, and we get rook c1. We get rook c8, and we get queen b3. Just kind of getting out of the pin with the rook. We get queen a5. Bishop b2, and now b5. So this is the break that black really wants in the Sicilian. We get takes. Wait a minute. Brandon hung a pawn. Yeah, he did. But that was the point. The problem is, black does not have any play. If black cannot get b5, let's say he played bishop f8, f4, h4, f5, g5, h5, everything is going to go upon Brandon, right? And he can't even try to escape because the queen is laser beaming. So this is not a comfortable position for black unless he gets the b5 break. So Brandon sacrifices a pawn for activity. We get takes. And here Brandon plays takes. A bit better was rook b8, trying to attack on the queen side. Then he would have to play a4, but then maybe knight c6. And there's a lot of different dynamics. Black tries to trade off the bishop, trying to activate his own bishop on the dark squares, which is a little bit better than what Brandon played. But nonetheless, he took on b5. We get takes, and we get queen a8. Obviously, you never want a queen trade when you're down material. Currently, Brandon is down a pawn, so now a4, a5. The two passes on the queen side make this much, much worse for black, because it's not even about the activity, it's just about, well, who's going to stop these pawns. So we get queen b5, queen a8, he says no to the queen trade, we get rook c1, and we get rook b8. So he's trying to attack on this side of the board, queen e2, bishop f6. So again, black needs to find some counterplay. Nice little move here from Sam, knight b3, blocking the rook's attack on the king. We get queen a4, and we get rook c2. So he's guarding against b2, he's just guarding against any type of situation. You can't play knight c4 because obviously that hangs a knight. So the key squares are guarded by white. We get king h7, we get bishop d2, and again, he's seeing that he wants to reroute to a better diagonal. Queen a7, and again, very smart here. He repeats once. He repeats once to get that extra time. See what Brandon did? He went down to 737 to play queen a7 because he thought Sam was going to play bishop c3, in which case he could have played queen g1 check. I'm not entirely sure what he was planning. Maybe d5, but then that does weaken the e5 knight. But what Sam does is very smart. He sees that Brandon spends 5 minutes on that, and now it's equal time, so he repeats once. Now we get rook a8, so he changes his plan because he sees that maybe he wants to make a draw. He's very ambitious. Rook a8, knight c1. You can't play a3 because that hangs the knight, so you have to be tactically aware when you have few minutes on the clock. Knight c1, queen a7, and now bishop e3, queen d7, f4, knight g6, queen d3. So we see he's got his whole armada. You maybe play h4. He's going to go for e5. e5 is the option because of the pinned queen. Queen b7, knight b3. We kind of get some shuffling here because we're both down the minutes. We get 2 minutes for Brandon and 1 minute for Sam. King g8, queen d6, and now he plays rook d8, which is a mistake because now it allows Sam to try to trade the queens off. The problem is black doesn't have an option. He just does not have an option. If you go queen b4, I have bishop d2 or I have bishop c5. So he checks and he takes. And he takes on f4, seeing that it's going to be a pin, maybe knight d3. And again, with 43 seconds on your clock, you never know what's going to happen. But Sam, cool-headed, a4, a5, a6, a7. I have a question. Who's going to stop it? Because it's not going to be black. Black can't get behind the pawn. Knight e2, a5. Knight c1, rook c1, rook d8, a6. So he stops it. But now Sam is up a pawn. Remember, he gained 2 pawns here. He's up 2 pawns. So now after a4, a5, he can't do anything. Brandon is losing. Sam is beating a 2600 caliber player with no, not offering any remorse. King f8, knight a5. So he's going to go knight c4, knight b6, and bishop b7, knight c4. And don't worry, because the king is coming. The b4 pawn is going to happen. King e8, king c2, bishop b4. He's walking his king to the edge of the board, supported by his rook. We get bishop b1, king a4, rook d8, a7, knight b6 incoming, rook a8, and a nice little touch to end the game, rook c8 check. Because if you take, knight d6 check, knight c8, and no one's guarding against the light square promotion when you have a dark squared bishop. Rook c8 check, Brandon resigns, and Sam wins his 3rd game in a row with the white pieces against the 2600 caliber player who literally beat Hikaru. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Unbelievable performance. And the last game I have for you is his game against the next round opponent, Alexei Sarana. He got paired against Nico Chasin, Sharvish, Brandon Jacobson, and Alexei Sarana, all 2450 plus caliber players. So Alexei Sarana, he's known for his d4. He plays d4. We'll look at this from Sam's perspective to round out the video. We get knight f6, c4, g6. He loves his fianchetto setups. Knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, h3 castles. Again, so Sarana is going for the h3 approach, bishop e3, knight c6. So this is actually a line that I haven't really seen much, but the point is you kind of get kicked around on purpose, but you play e6 and you kind of try to exploit white's overextension on your side. Knight f3, e6. Obviously you don't want to take because then you open the f file for the rook, and then knight h5. And this is Sam's bread and butter, playing on this dark square diagonal. e6, bishop d3. You get takes, rook e8, queen e2, knight c5. Interesting choice, interesting dynamic. He takes, and here Sam says, see, I could take, but I'm on the run of my life right now, so why not gamble? And he takes on e4. He plays a physical impossibility because that's guarded twice. Takes f5 because now once he castles, that's a fork. So I'm getting back to knight or the bishop, plus the other bishop on c5 is hanging, plus now a5, a4, plus my bishop is active. We get knight g5, takes, bishop c4, queen d6. The only move, queen d6, because it's pinned, castles fe4. Sam is better against Alexei Sarana. 16 minutes to 22 minutes. Rook e1, bishop f5, but he did run into g4. So what he does is he doesn't want to go back, but he plays e3, trying to make it come to his side, right? Rook e3, bishop d4, throwing it in. By the way, if you take, thinking you're a genius, oops, there goes your queen. Rook b3, and we get bishop e4, so he saves his bishop. Knight e6, takes, knight c4, queen c4, or knight c7, queen c4, queen c2, takes, rook e2, takes, and rook f8. So dust has kind of settled here. So the dynamic is Alexis Sarana has the rook on the b file, the knight versus the bishop dynamic, but the problem is white is much more active. If you play knight rook b8, by the way, thinking that you want to defend the pawn, you are not going to defend the pawn, so you might as well be active. So this is what he does: rook f8, knight e6, but now he goes into a rook and pawn endgame, which he now knows is winning because rook f3. He guards against the f4 pawn, king d3, and unfortunately for Sam, the d4 pawn is extremely weak. He goes h5, so he's trying to create counterplay on this side of the board. Maybe he can go rook h7 once he opens the h file. King d3 takes, rook d7, king e4, rook e7 check, but that gives up the pawn. He wants activity on the e file, so he goes rook e2. We have rook b3, b6, king d5, rook c2, cutting off the king from going to c6. We get a4, king f7, rook b5, and now, unfortunately, he blunders with king e7, b3, rook c3, g5. And this is the problem for Sam. His king is stretched too thin. He can either go to this side of the board, but he's going to get outflanked. We have king d7, king d4, and now he runs. He runs to the g6 pawn, king e7, trying to shield it. Rook b4. He's entering from both sides of the board. This is a 2700 caliber player. You see that he's punishing. And now king d5, he triangulates. Look at this triangulation. Rook e3 check, king d4, and now he triangulates to d5, because now after king d7, rook d4, king e7, b4. And the problem is he's guarded against his b4 pawn. He's going to go king c6, and the black king is either going to guard this side of the board or guard this side of the board. He tries to be active with rook a3, but rook e4 check, rook e6, and he goes against the g6 pawn. You cannot attack f4 and a4 at the same time. Checks. This is a losing king and pawn endgame. By the way, after king e5, king f5, king e3, he's going to unfortunately play a5. This is still winning after king f3 and then king e4, and you outflank using the f5 pawn. Just to give you guys an example of what this would look like, I'll say king f7, king e5, here, and f5, and you stretch too thin. I guess you would probably play it here, and then you play f5, takes g6. And unfortunately, black can't guard against a5, and he can't guard against the queen promotion. So Sam chops off those pawns. We get g6, b5, but the pawn here versus the pawn here is going to be a losing race for black. Rook g8, king c7, g7, rook a1, rook f8. He's going to queen. He throws in the last check, and then he throws in the towel. King to d4, and Sam went 6 out of 9 in this tournament. And he beat 3 GMs. This is not all the games that he played, of course, but it kind of gives you a snapshot of the upsets that can happen in these high-level tournaments, and that players like this are extremely hard to find when they have completely different styles. Like the styles of the games were not that different itself, but we saw that Sam, under pressure, under 20 minutes, down 20 minutes in most of his games, found resources that they did not see. And so that's going to conclude the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to hit that subscribe button. But I just wanted to give you a taste of an insane performance. I'm pretty sure Sam goes up to 23-30, around there now, probably higher in FIDE. He's definitely got a norm from this tournament. I'm pretty sure he has gotten a norm. I will double check that. But an insane run, a run that he definitely will not forget, and a run that you will never see covered on any YouTube channel. But it's something that I want to show you guys, because it's not only the top level players that are, beating high level players, right? It's also these players that are 22, 2300 that are never actually recognized unless they beat like Vincent Keimer or something. So that's going to be it for this video. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And I will see you guys in the next video shortly. Until next time, Rampage Works out.